hallowed be thy command. Your will be done by me as you command. Taking me on excursions to cloud nines. Women, my loving creature that never loved. Greatest love was and still is a myth. See, I still remember the first time that you called me babe. Shit, damn. I thought our love would be compost, fertilize our existence, but I couldn't tame you, my Frankenstein. Love is blind and I forgot that I wasn't a slave to your ways. How could you torment my pulse? How could you make my heart die for a second by skipping beats for you? How could you make me believe that the gap was filled and my heart was finally safe? You became God and I prayed prayers to you. In your temple, I became slave. I stripped myself off of my existence for you so I can make space for your ego. I became less of me to put up with your shit. Cut off female friends because of your insecurities. See baby, I allowed you to dictate without any buts, but still, it wasn't enough for you. So here I am. I'm broken. I'm twisted, tormented and torn apart. But how could you know? Too full of yourself. Listen, I hope you like what you actually turned me into. So baby, they'll call me a bitter ass for this, but fuck it. Fuck you and them. Careless bitch. I hope the new guy beats on you and tells you that you're fat. I hope it eats up of your self-esteem. I hope misery is your middle name when you finally feel worthless. When you feel how I felt. I never loved the way you lied, so I can't tell you how you feel. Okay. I tried, but I failed.
I hope it works this time.
You tried.
It is.
I tried, but I
Maybe choose the volume to the song, to the back song.
You tried, but you failed.
Okay, we are back. Okay, so the song playing in the background is a spoken word piece by Yakauli, titled Tried, love poem. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We had a young network error earlier on, but we're doing it now. So real quick, just to recap, or rather to restart the show, my name is Accolade Motha, the gift given for excellence to an excellent-minded gift, born in the hood of words. I'm so gangster, poetistical-minded. The mind is word hard like a pistol. I spit powerful proverbial puns of poetry. Get the sound? The only poet with poetry cancer, so listeners are RIP. Rest in peace to your brain cells, because I'm about to recite interesting poetry. The gift given for excellence. Accolade. And today, joining me on this live, or rather on this series, on the debut, the first episode of this series, is Lethu Nkwanyana, the one and only, the phenomenal Lethu Nkwanyana. Just to be brief, I will briefly read his bio, and welcome to everyone who's joining us. And okay, so Lethu Nkwanyana is an award-winning poet, a writer, a thespian, a wordsmith, the epitome of a true performer, and he has been featured on an international showcase in the PIA Poets in Autumn. He's won the South African Poetry Award for Best Poet. Just gonna name a few highlights. It was in the top 3 best poets in the country for the Word and Sound Digital Slam Season 10. Lethu has slammed at the CSP, Current State of Poetry, for those who do not know what that means, and named in the 12 poets in the top 12 poets in the province of KZN. Having the privilege of being a judge in a poetry slam competition. Lethu has also ran a poetry workshop, grooming other upcoming poets at Guadoguza Town Hall. He's represented KZN at the Drama for Life Poetry Competition in 2017 held in Johannesburg. He's a co-writer of Ushanelo, which is a theater piece, and that showcased in the Limpopo province, the National School of Arts at Wits University, and also the City Varsity Theatre Room. As a poetry pioneer, Lethu is still looking to take poetry to a higher level and also grooming and motivating other artists. Lethu Nkwanyana, welcome.
Thank you, sir, for welcoming me.
Yes, yes. Thank you for availing yourself for this series, and it's an honor. It's an honor for myself.
Pleasure.
I know you're a busy man. You could be grooving right now, but yeah, otherwise.
I could be right now.
Yeah. Okay, so Lethu Nkwanyana, outside of your achievements and outside of your bio, tell us who you are.
Firstly, my name is Lethu Nkwanyana, and funny enough, I'm outside the hospital in which I was born in. Yeah,
Wow.
a friend's party, and I'm outside. I have this light on my hand. That's why it's so dark. I love God. I go to church. I go to the Evangelical Lutheran Church. I'm a poet. That's where I fell in love with poetry. I study acting. I teach acting. And I also run a few poetry workshops. I don't know. I can't say anything outside my life that doesn't include poetry, because almost everything in my life now does include poetry. I have a business that I run. Yeah, I'm just a hands-on person, always busy, but poetry keeps me busy the most.
Okay. Okay, so that was us diving a bit into who Lethu is. So before we go any further into probably understanding who Lethu is, do you still remember the first poem you wrote?
Definitely, I do remember my first poem. In fact, it's one of my favorite poems.
Okay.
The poem is I Knew You Before I Formed You. I recited that poem in church. I remember even the reaction of the audience, because it was my first time performing, it was my first time writing a poem. So when I went to stage, I remember that my father was in the audience. When I said the first 4 lines, my father stood up and he started clapping his hands, because he couldn't believe that I could do such a powerful piece. So that picture still lingers on my mind, because I can just see him standing there and clapping his hands for me. So that is one of the things that pushes me to carry on with poetry. Well, my father passed away a few years ago, so I know he never got a chance. He only heard my first poem. He saw me perform.
Okay.
So my poems are usually pushed by my father's memory.
Okay. That's a very touching story to it. Like, yeah. To add to it's wow. I can imagine or rather I can feel the excitement
Uh,
um, and the inspiration brought by the sight of your father whenever you start writing, you know. Um, yeah. So interestingly enough, for me, my parents never saw me perform because they passed away when I was still young. Um, Yeah, so but it's one of the reasons why I started writing poetry, which is me trying to heal that trauma, you know, and trying to become a sample in life, which poetry has helped me to actually unveil for myself, you know. Yeah, but anyways, would you be kind enough, my good sir, to bless us with that first poem, the very first poem you wrote?
okay. How do you? Well, I still remember the poem. Okay, it's how does it go? Like I need to tap into the emotions. It says,
Okay.
I knew you before I formed you. Before you were born, I had already set you apart. I knit you together in your mother's womb and I appointed you. For you must go wherever and whenever I tell you. Do not be afraid of people, for they will try to fight you, but they will fail, for I am with you, and I will protect you, and I will take care of you, because I love you. And I have spoken because I knew you before I formed you. And before Abel and Cain, before death, sorrow, crying, or pain, before the first sin was made, and even before the heavens dropped the first drop of the rain, you reigned and your word already existed. See, the word was with God, and the word was God, existing in the beginning with God. So the word actually is God. The world was dark, so the word started creating light to extinguish darkness. The stars, the moon, and the sun were a mark for a remarkable start. And then he started creating humans in his own image, male and female. He placed them in the Garden of Eden and told them not to eat from the sacred tree of knowledge. But now the snake was a thief and fooled Eve to eat. The fruit was then bitten. It tasted good, and the eyes were opened, and the first sin appeared, and so they realized they were naked. So they started hiding. But it was too late, for he wasn't happy, so he started cursing for men. He will harden the ground, they will struggle to scrape a living. Women, he will sharpen the pain of pregnancy, and in pain she will give birth. Push. And as for the snake, it will crawl on its underbelly, groveling in the dust forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But to him, nothing really is new, for he has always knew. That's why he says, I knew you before I formed you. And before you were born, I knit you together in your mother's womb, and I appointed you. For you must go wherever I tell you. I, the Lord, have spoken. I knew you before I formed you. Thank you.
I knew you before I formed you.
Yeah.
So I think um, on dissecting that poem, I don't know if it's my place, but most people in the country grew up in the context of a Christian teaching,
Yeah.
which makes, for me, which makes the poem a bit easy to understand and relate to. But for you, what was the inspiration behind the poem? Why did you write that piece?
Okay. I'd love to believe that I'm a very philosophical person. You know,
Okay,
I spend a lot of time philosophizing, thinking, how did we get here, and what is our purpose, and am I sure that it's really God that created everything? So my subject matter on poetry um, is usually about God or the beginning
okay,
verse, those Big Bang Theory type of stuff. And this one that says, I knew you before I formed you, is just an assertion and assuring myself that, I'm here. Somebody knew me before they formed me. It's not a mistake. Excuse me. Excuse me for that. Um, so it's not a mistake. I was created for a purpose. So I believe that there is a being outside human, that a deity is in charge of everything that goes on under the sun. So that's what I write about.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So before we move on to your second piece,
Hmm.
what, why poetry? What does
What
poetry mean to you?
what does poetry mean to me? Um, I said this. I said that a lot of poets would consider that, or would say that I did not choose poetry. Poetry chose me. I also believe that I'm one of those people who were chosen by this beautiful art. Because I remember I was in church, then there were people who came from Germany, and they gave me this, and then when reading, they gave me this book, and then I was forced to write poetry. So when I was forced to write poetry, I started falling in love. The more I wrote, the more I fell in love. And I looked up to this guy. His name is Lindokuhle Mngoma. And then he
Okay.
introduced me to Sipokazi Jonas. And then when I started watching, because those are the first people I saw perform poetry. And then I was like, wow, so this is poetry. And then I was like, no, this is me. This transcends with me.
Okay. So there's a poem of yours I really love. Street Kids. So yeah, Street Kids. I wanna put you on the spotlight and
Yeah.
please perform that piece. Please perform that piece for us. And then after performing it, you explain the emotion, or rather how you went about to actually getting to write that piece.
Okay, I just hope I can remember the whole piece.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just try and perform that piece. Erased lines on palms. No identity, for fingers have lost their prints, and a home has lost its prints. To live a rough life with smooth hands that are vigorously rubbed. But friction is futile when warmth is held hostage by sharp keys that cuts with a cold winter dagger placed on necks uncovered by scarves. Street kids, strangled throat, congested nasals in self-defense blow grenades of disgust as they burst, using new, escaping provocation under temperatures, sighing a breath that imitates smoke when it rises, and our body is a vibrating coliseum for gladiator cells, weaponless, versus Thermia Goliath in an icy battlefield. Imagine how the empty bellies wrestle starvation. It's not so royal when tummies rumble, and the teeth gnashing at war, colliding. A injured drum and can, imbaula, wrapped in rust, fed wood would spew flames, so they gather around the fire, not just for heat, but to see the light at the end of the winter tunnel, stretching their arms, trying to grab a new season that springs and kangaroos out of sight. Do not follow the light. So they follow the light, and their pupils dilate, so they die, and it's too late. Another street kid has been found dead this winter. Yeah.
Snap. Okay, excuse me for that. Just for a second, I want to do this. Charge the speaker here. Okay, we're back. So, what is the inspiration behind this piece?
I think in a way, like the title just gives it off, like it's self-explanatory. First, I wanted to title it Winter Cold Killed Street Kid, but it was too long. But I remember that I was walking in the street of Durban, and ironically, I'm just sitting, and there's a person almost like right next to me who's sleeping on the floor. So
Whoa.
remember that I was yeah, like this person is covered in plastic bags right now as I'm speaking. And it's a normal thing. I don't understand how such things become a norm. I remember that I was in Durban and I saw a lot of street kids, and it was winter and it was extremely cold. And in the morning, I heard in the same streets that I was walking by, I just heard that there's a person who died on that street. Like a street kid died because of the cold. And then I wrote a poem touching on that particular matter. So yeah, because I felt it when I saw that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a very profound observation. And I love personally, I love the way you put it into words
Mm.
and made it into such a beautiful poem. Especially together with the visuals. Now that you explained them, it makes sense of how, they all came together.
Oh, and in terms of the visuals, if you watched the video, I don't know if people really got the whole video thing on what was happening, because I'm walking in a tunnel, né? So when I was walking in the tunnel, firstly I begin like erased lines on palms, no identity for fingers have lost their prints. I do not know the story of this person. I don't know why they left, but I know that. So I'm walking into this tunnel. This person, usually the people who are street kids, the decisions do not know what they're doing. So I start walking into a tunnel, and then in the end of the video, I walk into the light because that was the end of the tunnel. Because these people end up dead.
Oh,
I start
whoa.
beautifully walking. I'm walking. So the life of a street kid is always in a tunnel, hoping for a better future, which never comes. The only thing that comes is death. So they walk into the light. So I think that the whole video was trying to show that.
Whoa. Like the way you explained it now makes like it gives more life to the video, Um, like I see it completely. I see what you're saying completely. I'm looking at the video now in a totally different way. So for those of you who have not seen the video, it's on YouTube. Is it on your channel? Because I watched it from the Word and Sound channel.
It is on my channel. If people go to my channel, they'll find that video, Street Kids. It is on the channel.
Okay. What's the name of your channel again?
Lethu Nkwanyana.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, go to Nkwanyana on YouTube and check out the video of Street Kids, and then this whole discussion will make sense to you. Okay, so just before we near our end, the end of the show, what are your goals for yourself as Lethu Nkwanyana and as a brand? Because it's also included in your bio, Guti. As a pioneer, you seek to expand more and grow. What are the near goals?
Okay.
Short-term goals.
Okay. Firstly, like a goal that I set for myself, for my enjoyment, besides anyone else on the side. I love going places, and I remember that I remember taking a flight, going to Slam. I was with a guy called Mazwi Shazi, and we slammed against Masai, Kabiso in Wits University, 2017. When poetry paid for me, that I was like, okay, now I love this. I'd love to travel just to perform. Because I flew, they put a nice hotel, we stayed there, we were fed, we were happy. So I was like, I love this. So that's the kind of life I want in terms of poetry. I want to be international. So that's for my personal pleasure. But in terms of the people on the side, I really, really want to be an inspiration for upcoming poets, like how I was inspired. I know that there are poets that I've groomed which are doing exceptionally well in the industry. And, you know, those touching stories when they said, no, I'm doing poetry because I saw Lethu do poetry. Because that's
Yeah.
also saying I do poetry because I saw Sipogazi Jonas doing poetry. I saw Lindo Guhle Mngoma doing poetry. I saw them and
Yeah.
then I love with poetry. I want people to say if you search, like if you are anywhere in the world and you search in poetry, South Africa, I want my name to pop up there. So that's what I want. And then people can just reference, you know, to be constantly referenced when we talk about poets in essay. So I really
Sure.
want, and I try by all means, and I make sure that I give platform to the young ones, especially. I give a lot of platform because I have a one-man poetry show, which is called Let the
Okay.
Poets. It's an annual poetry event. I usually put young, upcoming poets so that they can perform, and I book a few of those poets who have made it in the industry so that they can say, I've shared a stage with so and so, I've shared a stage with this, I've shared a stage with Busmus Pagati or Kuli Zulu or anyone for that matter. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the goal.
Okay. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting. And all the best with that, man. Just one more question before we close off. What are the people to expect from Muletu?
Please repeat this cause.
Okay. Um, let's see, what are the people to expect from Muletu in the near future?
In the near future, beautiful videos, visuals. In terms of poetry, if you follow my poetry, I think I want to feed people good poetry, almost like scripted, something that they can visually. Now we're in the digital world, and
Yeah.
let the poets slam. So I want to make a huge, like I want it to be a provincial or a poetry tour. Let the poets slam. So a lot of poets will be slamming, and I know a lot of poets who already want to slam. In Durban, I have poets who want to slam. In Joburg, I already have poets who want to slam. So let the poets slam is the next biggest thing, hopefully, by trusting God. And another thing to expect from me, like poetry needs to be on television. I just I don't know. I don't even know if I have the capabilities, but I want to try by all means to make poetry be on television. Like how you go to Comedy Central. Why can't we have Poetry Central? You know,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
far
Yeah.
I go as far as Netflix. Why not?
Actually, that's interesting because I was on the brain. I was brainstorming the same thing, Bomas Ning Ning. Um, the Netflix thing, Netflix
Yeah.
special, like comedy specials. Why not poetry specials? You know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's something we could talk about
And
perhaps.
I'm sorry to speak to your tongue, but I remember that this thing I posted where I said Poetry World War, and then almost all the poets in the country started participating and saying, "Yeah, we want this Poetry World War." So this Poetry World War thing, I wanna make it happen. Why can't we call international poets and go against them? We wanna slam, we wanna have fun using our art. So, because I know that there's this poet, Crystal Valentine. I spoke to her, and she's keen on being part of this. And a lot of other international poets who want to be part of this Poetry World War. It's just that we need finances and the proper channels and platforms for this. But uh, my team will try to work hard on achieving this goal.
That will happen, I trust.
Yeah. I almost said
Yeah.
in wedding we trust.
Yeah, almost. It's good you didn't, but because this is not word and sound, but word and sound we do trust, but not now. Yeah. So, ladies and Nkwanyana, thank you very much, man, for joining me on this series. For those of you who missed the show, we're gonna have this on IGTV, and I'm gonna upload it on YouTube. So stay tuned for the link. It will be out on my YouTube channel on Accolade Motha Poetry. So, ladies and gentlemen, from myself, the gift given for excellence. Thank you for joining us on Accolade's 3D poetry series, and join us next week, Wednesday. Follow me and follow me. And then stay tuned for more information on our next guest. From me, much love. Good night.
Thank you. Now I'm going back to the party, man.
Yeah, go groove, man.
Thank you so
Sure,
much
man.
for Mr. Motha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for availing yourself.
Pleasure.
Sure.